Welcome to the TRIO Priority 2 training for Veterans Upward Bound, brought to you by Marjorie Morrison, Director of Veterans Upward Bound at Cuyahoga Community College. In this session, we will cover budget management for Veterans Upward Bound. The Veterans Upward Bound program is a program born from the success of its predecessor. Traditional Upward Bound came into existence in the mid-1960s as a part of the nation's war on poverty. Veterans Upward Bound was created as an offshoot in 1972, supporting soldiers returning from Vietnam as they navigated the transition from war to college. In 1973, Cuyahoga Community College received its first Veterans Upward Bound grant. We have continued serving veterans for over 40 years, and we are the oldest Veterans Upward Bound program in the nation. The many years that Cuyahoga Community College has supported our grant, as well as other TRIO grants, has given our institution tremendous opportunity to create the tools and methods of operation that allow our programs to remain compliant to the budgetary guidelines and constraints that accompany the privilege and responsibility of grant administration. Once your institution has received its official grant award notification, the next phase of work begins, creating the budget. Dean, my colleague here at Cuyahoga Community College, has put together a great set of modules that you will find here under the title TRIO Budget Training. These modules describe the steps involved in running the budget for a grant program, but it's important to understand the operational definitions, the realities of where the rubber meets the road. So let's discuss how that works for the TRIO Upward Bound program. The first and most important reality is that you, those who manage the day-to-day functions of the grant, need to have a collaborative relationship with your grant accountant, your human resources department, and your program officer at the Department of Education. It is likely that your grant accountant works with other TRIO grants at your institution, so it is important to note the nuances within the Veterans Upward Bound grant, as all Veteran Upward Bound students, by definition, are independent students. As such, room and board costs are unallowable for these students. As you look into your overall budget, it is likely that the majority of your funding goes towards staff salaries and benefits. Here is the first step of collaboration with your grant accountant. The individual or department will work with you to determine the fringe rates that are for each position, and they will assist you in determining the final cost for each position. Next, you will determine what to do with the remaining available funds. As you determine what the needs are for your program, you will take into consideration tangibles like classroom supplies and intangibles such as professional development opportunities. You will need to determine allowable costs versus those that are not permitted. In the 2016 OMB circular, which can be found under the White House archives, lists the most current list of allowable and non-allowable expenditures. And while it's important to access this list for your own understanding, it's also good to collaborate and consult with your grant accountant. Sometimes items are ambiguous and need greater clarity. Your program officer at the Department of Education will have the final word on what he or she will allow. The program officer may make a call that you disagree with. Don't be afraid to inquire as to why a line item was disallowed if you feel that it falls within the guidelines. This will give you a better understanding of allowable cost and provides an opportunity for positive communication with your program officer. An example of this was a line item in your budget that called for attendance at a regional meeting. The program officer first thought it was another state meeting, which would take us beyond our allowable quota for state level meetings. We clarified that this was a regional gathering and was a networking recruiting event as opposed to a training event, so we were subsequently permitted to expense this line item. Again, communication is the key. Connect with your Human Resources Department. It is likely that personnel costs make up a significant part of your budget. Many TRIO programs rely on part-time staff to fulfill various assignments. Your grant may outline specific levels of education for certain positions, and labor relations within your institution may dictate the rate of pay for these individuals. Subsequently, the greatest line item in your budget, staff salaries, may still be subject to changes as your personnel needs fluctuate. You may need to reduce hours if you cannot reduce the rate of pay. Fiscal monitoring is imperative to ensure that you are on track to carry out your budget as it's planned. Monthly tracking by your director, combined with quarterly check-ins with your grant accountant, can help in this process. Modifications can occur with a fair amount of latitude, but it is important to include your program officer in the event of major changes, or if there are changes in key personnel. New directors, for example, must be approved by your program officer at the Department of Education. Talk with your counterparts, both on and off campus. Other TRIO directors can offer insight and support you as you work your program to make it the best it can be. Talk with your counterparts both on and off campus. Other TRIO directors can offer insight and support as you work to make your program the best it can be. Connect with groups and organizations that understand the needs of a TRIO program. The Council of Opportunities in Education is one such organization that encompasses all TRIO programs. It may be helpful to find organizations that are narrower in their focus and more relative to your specific program, such as the National Association of Veterans Upward Bound. Even if your budget doesn't have wiggle room for the dues, you can still connect with someone in a related program, or you could call someone in the same program in a different region. As we work with our colleagues to collaborate, communicate, and connect, our efforts result in greater success for our programs and our students. And finally, we want to thank you for serving our veterans through the TRIO Veterans Upward Bound program.